Welcome to ILTV's Israel Daily. I'm the Darga Velazian, coming up in today's newscast. Syrian state news reporting a missile strike on Damascus International Airport. Is Israel responsible? Finance Minister Bezalel Smotrich takes office and his first act, cutting the tax on single-use plasticware and soft drinks. And which Israeli icon has made it into Rolling Stone's list of the greatest singers of all time? The Syrian state news agency reporting Monday on Israeli airstrikes targeting Damascus International Airport, the second strike on the site in less than a year. Let's take a look. Israeli airstrikes targeting Damascus International Airport killed 2 Syrian soldiers and wounded 2 others early Monday morning, according to the Sana Syrian state news agency. A military source cited by Sana said the attack occurred around 2 a.m., causing material damages and putting the airport out of service. According to the Syrian Observatory for Human Rights, a UK-based group that monitors human rights violations in Syria, the missile strikes also targeted an arms depot south of Damascus. There was no immediate response from the Israel Defense Forces, which usually does not comment on its operations in Syria. This is the second time in less than a year that the Damascus International Airport has been targeted by airstrikes. Last June, airstrikes attributed to Israel caused significant damage to the airport's main runway, halting flights for 2 weeks. Other airstrikes on the airport have also been attributed to Israel in the past. Israel and intelligence sources generally believe that Iran smuggles weapons through civilian air transportation to its allied fighters in Syria and Lebanon, through Damascus International Airport and 2 arms depots nearby. And joining us now with more on the Israeli airstrike in Syria is Dr. Fadi Smale, fellow at the International Institute for Counterterrorism at Reichman University. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So we've heard relative quiet on Israel's front with Syria, and now a new government being sworn in this past week with Netanyahu at the helm. Is it sending a clear message to the Syrian regime?
Well, I haven't been hearing anything quiet in the last year or so. There have been dozens of attacks in Syria that people say were Israeli Air Force, including more than half of them in the area of Damascus, concentrated on the airport and facilities surrounding the airport. I know about at least 18 to 20 such attacks in the last 12 months, more than 200 fatalities in among Iranians and Syrians and Lebanese and other nationalities that work for the Iranian expansion project. So Israel has not been quiet in Syria for quite a while now, definitely not in the last year. So the attack that is probably Israeli, that we're talking about now, that happened on airport grounds as well as in surrounding facilities, is basically within just another one in a continuum of very clear messages that are repeatedly sent to Iran, to Russia, to Syria, that Israel will continue to do everything it can to dismantle Iranian networks and infrastructure in Syria. So I'm sorry, but I don't really see the premise of the question as one that is supported by the facts on the ground.
All right, so not a quiet year in Syria, but the new government being sworn in this week. Lapid did not have very close relations with Vladimir Putin, president of Russia. Israel does need to have some sort of coordination with Russia when it does attack in Syria. Netanyahu has much warmer relations with Putin. Will this at all affect Israel's capabilities to maneuver in Syria?
Okay, this is the point where the fact that this is a new government in Israel actually matters. Although, as I said, it's attack that we talk about is one of one of many. The new government, well, specifically Prime Minister Netanyahu, the message is Israel will continue with its same strategy of going after Iranian presence in Syria. Actually, he was the father of this strategy. in his previous tenure as prime minister. And in that sense, the fact that it is a new government puts a certain twist on the attack that we have just seen. Yes, we say, or we have a general sense that Mr. Netanyahu has a much better connection with the Kremlin headed by Putin. Could be. Let's hope that that works out like that. The Russians in the last few weeks, few months have been making all kinds of strange demands from Israel, like they want control over holy sites in Jerusalem and so on. And some people attribute that approach to the bad connection or bad relationship between Putin and the previous Israeli government. So is the entrance of the new government and will change that? And on the other hand, would the attack that we've seen in Syria just maintain the quite tense relationship between Jerusalem and Moscow? This is really something we'll have to wait and see in the next few months. I think that both Netanyahu and Putin understand each other. It seems like it. And they will probably find some common language at some point. They have done it so many times in the past, so I'm pretty sure they can do it again.
And now I do want to ask you a quick question about news coming out of Lebanon that Hassan Nasrallah, head of Hezbollah, the Iranian terror proxy organization, has had a stroke. Have you heard anything about this from your contacts? And if Nasrallah is ill, or we should say, the day after Nasrallah, what can we expect to happen with Hezbollah?
2 points about that. I can't even count the number of times people have buried Hassan Nasrallah. Every time he has a runny nose, everybody is sure he's going to die. He is a heavy smoker. He is overweight. He has all kinds of old age diseases. He's definitely a candidate for a stroke or MI, as myocardial infarction, or other disease like that. But since so many times we have been told that he is very critically ill and just about to die, who knows what's happening here? On the other hand, even if I don't understand people's excitement about that. And Nasrallah was a much worse adversary to Israel than his predecessor, and nothing tells us that the next one is not going to be even worse. So before people on the Israeli side become excited about this whole thing, I would say, sometimes better the devil that you know, as devilish as it is, So that's how I look at it.
All right, Dr. Fadi Smale, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us today.
Thank you for having me. Have a great day.
And moving on, Israeli Defense Forces entered a Palestinian village in Judea and Samaria overnight Monday to demolish the homes of 2 terrorists involved in the killing of an Israeli soldier last year. They were met with gunfire and responded in kind. The details in the following report. 2 Palestinian gunmen were killed in a firefight with Israeli forces near the West Bank city of Jenin early Monday morning, Palestinian media reported. The Israeli Defense Forces entered the village of Kfar Dan to demolish the homes of 2 terrorists that were involved in the killing of Major Bar Falach last September. In response to the operation, stones and gunfire were aimed at the Israeli forces, who returned fire. No casualties were reported among the Israeli security forces. 30-year-old Major Bar Falach was the deputy commander of the Nahal Brigade's elite reconnaissance unit. He was killed in an exchange of fire with 2 Palestinian terrorists north of Jenin last year. Falach's unit had identified the 2 Palestinian suspects approaching a military post, but it failed to realize they were armed and were caught by a volley of fire, which killed Falach. Meanwhile, the IDF summarized its operations for 2022, reporting 7,589 incidents of rocks thrown at Israelis, 1,268 Molotov cocktail hurlings, and 285 shooting attacks and 14 stabbing attacks on Israelis in Judea and Samaria alone, while over 1,100 rockets were fired from Gaza into Israel this past year. The Israel Defense Forces have been operating in Judea and Samaria as part of Operation Breaking the Wave, launched in April, following a wave of deadly terror attacks in Israel that claimed the lives of 20 people.